What happened in that game between the Dodgers and the Orioles was not just a baseball incident. It was a moment that shook the entire league. The footage that surfaced after the game showed something that no one expected to see: Shohei Ohtani, one of the most physically dominant athletes in the world, collapsing inside the opposing team's dugout, clutching his head with both hands. The cameras caught every second of it. And once the full 2 minutes of footage were released, everything changed. Let me take you through exactly what happened, because the numbers and the highlights don't tell the full story here. You have to watch this game frame by frame to understand why the league made the decision it did, and why 2 Orioles players walked off that field knowing they wouldn't be back for 3 games. From the very first inning, the tone of this game was different. The Orioles came in aggressive. Their pitchers were throwing inside. Their fielders were moving with an edge that went beyond competitive. Most fans watching at home probably didn't notice it at first. But if you watch the footage carefully, you can see the Orioles' dugout was animated in a way that suggested this was personal. Ohtani stepped into the batter's box in the first inning with his usual composure. He doesn't rush. He doesn't show emotion. He simply prepares, reads the pitcher, and executes. That composure is exactly what makes opponents uncomfortable. When you can't rattle a player mentally, some teams try a different approach. And that is exactly what the Orioles did. The first pitch came in dangerously close. Too close. Ohtani stepped back and reset. No reaction. No words. He simply got back into his stance. That's the thing about Ohtani that drives opponents crazy. The more you try to get into his head, the more locked in he becomes. Now let's talk about Pete Alonso, because what the footage revealed about his actions in this game was genuinely shocking. Not because Alonso is a dirty player by reputation, but because what he did in that moment crossed a line that even experienced baseball analysts were not prepared for. In the 4th inning, Ohtani was moving along the baseline after reaching base on a sharp single to left field. Alonso was positioned at first base. What happened in the next few seconds, you have to watch in slow motion to fully understand. There was contact. Deliberate contact. The kind that is designed not to make a play but to send a message. The umpires saw it in real time. And within seconds the call was made. Alonso was ejected. The Orioles' dugout erupted. And then came the second ejection, because one of their coaches came out onto the field and made it impossible for the umpires to do anything other than send him home too. 2 ejections. In the same sequence. Against the same player. That tells you everything you need to know about the temperature of that dugout, and what they came onto that field intending to do. Here is where the story takes the turn that nobody was prepared for. After the ejections, the game continued. Ohtani stayed on the field. He was composed, as always. But what the cameras caught in the later innings told a very different story about what was happening inside. The footage shows Ohtani walking into the visiting team's dugout area during a break between innings. He sat down on the bench. And then, within moments, he leaned forward and clutched his head with both hands. The cameras stayed on him for nearly 2 full minutes. You could see the trainers moving toward him. You could see his teammates looking over with concern. You could see the moment when the entire atmosphere on that bench shifted. Bench shifted. Now, the important thing here is what the team later confirmed and what the footage actually shows. Ohtani was dealing with the physical aftermath of that contact from the 4th inning. He had not said anything publicly. He had not complained to the umpires. He had simply kept playing. That is the Ohtani that the entire league knows. He doesn't ask for protection. He doesn't ask for calls. He plays through everything. But the body tells the truth, even when the athlete won't. Now let's talk about the suspension, because this is the part of the story that reveals just how seriously the league took what happened in this game. 3 consecutive games. That is not a standard punishment for a borderline play or a heated moment. 3 games means the league reviewed the footage, all of it, and came to a very specific conclusion about intent. When the league suspends a player for 1 game, they are saying it was reckless. When they suspend a player for 3 games, they are saying it was deliberate. The fact that two players received the same punishment in the same game against the same opponent is something that has almost never happened in recent baseball history. It sends an unmistakable message. You do not target Ohtani. You do not come onto that field with that intention. And if you do, there will be consequences that go beyond the game itself. From an analyst's perspective, what makes this situation even more significant is the context. This is not a player in a slump. This is not a player who has been making enemies on the field with dirty plays of his own. Ohtani plays clean. He plays hard. He competes at the highest level every single time he steps onto the field. The fact that a team would come in with this kind of energy directed at him says more about their frustration with him as a competitor than anything else. Here is the part that I think is most important to discuss. Because the incident itself is shocking, yes. The footage is difficult to watch. But what does this moment say about where Ohtani is in his career right now? When you become the kind of player that opposing teams feel the need to physically target, you have reached a different level. It is not a compliment in any conventional sense. But it is a signal. It means you are the problem they cannot solve with strategy alone. It means your presence on the field is so disruptive, so overwhelming, that some opponents lose their composure just being on the same field as you. Ohtani is currently leading the MVP mock voting with first-place votes from 30 out of 35 candidates. His ERA sits at 0.74. As a hitter, he has posted a batting average over .400 since the latter half of May. He is doing things that have never been done in the history of baseball. And when you are doing things that have never been done, you inevitably encounter reactions that have never been seen before. The Orioles lost their composure. They lost two players. They lost the game. And they handed Ohtani something far more valuable than a win. They handed him proof that every team in this league knows exactly how dangerous he is. Go back and watch those 2 minutes of camera footage. Watch the moment Ohtani sits down in that dugout. Watch his hands go to his head. Watch the trainers respond. And then watch what he does next. He gets back up. He prepares for his next at-bat. He goes back out onto that field. That is the story that the footage actually tells. Not just the incident. Not just the ejections. Not just the suspension. The real story is that after everything that happened in that game, Ohtani walked back out onto that field and kept competing. That is what separates him from every other player in this league. You can disrupt him physically. You can send players at him. You can get yourself ejected trying to throw him off his game. And at the end of all of it, he is still standing at the plate, still reading your pitches, still finding a way to beat you. The Orioles came into that game trying to send a message. But the message the league received, and the message that 2 minutes of footage made perfectly clear, is that there is no play, no contact, and no suspension that changes what Shohei Ohtani is capable of doing on a baseball field. The Cy Young Award race is still ongoing. The MVP race is still ongoing. And Ohtani, as always, is still playing.